Hey all, Blake here with another video, and recently in one of my live streams somebody asked why nobody ever has any good footage of honey blue eyes. So I was playing around in the tank that I have inside the house in my living room, which of course contains some honey blue eyes. I've got some decent footage and I thought I'd share it with you today as part of a honey blue eyes care guide. So let's jump straight into the video. So I really love honey blue eyes. The scientific name of these fish is Pseudomugil Mellis. They're packed full of activity. They have a brilliant gold body to them, or honey as the name would suggest, that you might struggle to come across them. Even here in Australia where these fish are a native, these fish are extremely hard to find. I was lucky to pick mine up at a recent ANGFA auction, ANGFA being the Australian New Guinea Fishers Association, so I was really happy about that. But especially internationally, you'll find these guys will be as rare as hen's teeth because there is exportation restrictions placed on them coming out of Australia due to their current status. Currently they have the status of vulnerable because they're restricted to a very certain type of area, and that is experiencing some habitat loss. So unfortunately there is a real risk that soon these fish will not exist in the wild. So it's imperative that we learn how to care for them properly. Hopefully we can keep some breeding going and keep them in the hobby at least. At this stage it's highly discouraged and I believe prohibited to collect these fish from the wild, though there is a semi-healthy captive bred population. There is a little trick to trying to keep a colony in a captive bred situation, which I'll touch on later in this video, so stick around until the end to find out how to do so. In terms of appearance, these fish are fairly small and compact. Generally they're around the 2.5 to 3 centimeters in length, or just over an inch. They have a nice honey color or golden color, as the name might suggest, an emerald green eye, which is funny considering that there are blue eyes. And the males also have elongated fins that are generally black with a white trim. In the wild they come from acidic, tannin-stained swamps and creeks in areas of Queensland, which is in the upper east side of Australia. And in those conditions they have an omnivorous diet, eating sorts of free-floating algae and other critters like Daphnia, Cyclops and other microcrustaceans. They're a mid to top dweller in the aquarium, so they hang out basically in the top 40% of your water column, and they enjoy water parameters such as a temperature between 22 to 30 degrees Celsius or 72 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, with a pH between 6.0 and 7.0. They're a fish that also doesn't really like a heap of flow, so the minimal flow that you can provide the better. They'll do great with sponge filters and that sort of thing, not so great with canister filters, hang on the backs and so forth. The other thing to consider when setting up your aquarium is that they are prolific jumpers. Like a lot of the mid to top dwelling fish, they have a torpedo shaped body and they will fly straight out any small gaps. So if you've got corner cutouts on your lids, stick some sponge in there. Maybe consider setting up a DIY lid out of some core flute material. As I mentioned, this species is extremely important to treat with care, so we don't want to be wasteful and end up with some, unfortunately, fish jerky on our floor. Please keep tight lids on those aquariums. Now the trick I mentioned to keeping a colony successfully over the long term is you need to continually spawn them. Just like annual killifish, these guys are extremely short-lived. They have a small window in which they use to breed, so if you miss that window, unfortunately, over time you will just lose the fish. With that said, they live about 2 to 3 years and they spawn between September and January in the wild. And we can replicate these conditions in our aquarium by keeping the heat up, so to get some breeding condition going, you can turn up the heat to 26 to 28 degrees Celsius or around 80 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit. They'll breed at around about the 12-month-old mark, and you'll notice that the females will start to get big and plump as they fill with eggs. To condition for breeding, they absolutely love baby brine shrimp, freshly hatched baby brine shrimp. Whether they're adults or fry, they will love it. They're pretty much the perfect size. I'm sure Daphnia would go down really well as well, but these fish go mad for some baby brine shrimp, so I do like to treat them about every 2 to 3 days with some freshly hatched brine shrimp, and it shows really great coloration with the carotenoids and great activity, and I believe that it helps to trigger spawning because it'll show them that there is small foods available for their fry. So I always think that it's great to feed live baby brine shrimp in order to condition fish for breeding. They're not like other egg scattering fish where they'll just spray 400 eggs all over the aquarium. They're pretty selective, and during their breeding period, the female will lay between 1 to 15 eggs per day for a period of 7 days. After that, they'll pretty much be done for the season and they'll go on about their business. Another unique feature to honey blue eyes is that the male will actually guard the spawning area, which is very unusual, especially for spawning moth breeding fish. But he'll hang around and guard the eggs because they do have an incubation period of 12 to 14 days. After that period, they will become free swimming and they'll generally hang around about the surface, which makes them extremely vulnerable to fish predating on them and everything else. I did have this experience in an accident. I had a tank full of pearlweed and sabwasatang, which was absolutely so dense you couldn't even see into it, and I did notice a few little honey blue eyes fry. I left them in there and they did survive for about 2 weeks. However, at that point they started to disappear. So whether another honey blue eyes ate them, or I had them in with some pygmy crows as well, perhaps they ate them. But unfortunately, I would suggest once you notice free swimming fry, they're far too precious to risk, and I'd separate them from now on. So I mentioned the criticality of that window. So if you want to have success keeping a colony of honey blue eyes, I recommend starting with about 6 to 10 juveniles. Wait until they get up to about the 12-month mark. Make sure that you breed them and harvest some successful fry. I've also done this outdoors in some ponds, and I've found that to be quite prolific. Unfortunately, the second year I tried to replicate this, it was quite a strange year for weather, very cold, and they didn't breed at all. So I think to breed they need to get those upper temperatures between the 26 to 30 degrees Celsius in order to really trigger that breeding. Outside of that, a really beautiful fish, one that's extremely unique and very sought after for a reason. I really love these honey blue eyes and I'm happy that I've been able to keep my little group for about 3 years now. I don't believe that these fish that you're seeing on screen were the originals, and I started with the trio. We got up to about 8 or 9 at a certain point, and now we're unfortunately back down to 4. But in this condition, I'm hoping to replicate some breeding very soon. I really hope to get those numbers bumped back up. Unfortunately, it is a bit of a tug of war situation with these fish, so it seems like that's just going to be the way that they are kept over the long term. But I'm happy with that if it means that I get to view these beautiful fish up close and personal whilst I still can. Fingers crossed that the generations of the future are able to do this, but that'll be up to us. So hopefully you've liked this video, hopefully you found it to be helpful. If you did, it always helps me out to smash like, hit subscribe, and all that fun stuff. If you've got any further queries or questions, feel free to drop them down below, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.